I played at Auburn University in the SEC, and from there I went on to play 1 year in the American Basketball League. That was the league right before the WNBA. Has anybody heard of that before? No, that's what I thought. I'm
We
showing.
got one.
We got one.
Oh, we got one? Okay. All right. Well, that was the league that a lot of the players that played early in the WNBA, Katie Smith, all of them, they played in that American Basketball League. And, very proud to have played in that. That was a league that really tried to early on pay the players correctly. That's one of the reasons why it didn't last long, is because they were paying too much at early on. So, and then from there, I had injuries in college, and so my passion to play. I said, you know what, I gotta get a job. I didn't want to play anymore and be hurt all the time. I love to play, but I was just hurt all the time. And then from there, I went on to coach high school 1 year. And a coach that actually, June Okowski, who had coached me at Auburn, she said, well, Sam, why don't you come coach with me at Butler for a year? So that was my first assistant coaching job, Butler University in Indianapolis. All right. Was there for a year, was trying to decide, do I want to keep playing? Because I was possibly looking at going overseas. So I stopped coaching for a year. And then I coached high school ball again in Louisville for 3 more years. And I'm not sure how many of you are doing this, but while I was coaching high school, I was also substitute teaching. Has anybody here ever been a substitute teacher?
Yeah, we got hands, a lot of hands.
Yes, I tell you what, substitute teaching is one of the best preparations I've ever had to be a coach.
Wow.
Can y'all feel me on that? Because, you have to go in, and it was elementary, middle school, high school. You're trying to, on that day, new people, you have to get them to buy in. And that's what coaching is all about. It's about the buy-in, whether or not they're going to listen to you or not. So then, I was still getting the itch to get back into college. And I was actually, I ran into the head coach at St. Louis University. I was coaching AAU at the time. I forgot to put that in there. And the head coach, she knew I was the coach of this kid that she wanted. And she said, well, you know what? I've got a position to be a graduate manager. Would you want to take that position? And I said, there's something you always have to remember in this business. Sometimes you just got to get in, okay? I knew if I wanted to get back into coaching, I had to take that position. All I was doing, I got a little stipend. They had put me in housing, and that's all I got. So I got my foot back in the door at St. Louis University for Jill Pizzotti, who's the associate head coach now at DePaul. And, I'm forever grateful for her to give me my second chance to get back in. All right. And then from there, at St. Louis, my head coach at the time, who was the coach at Auburn, he called me and said, hey, I've got a position that I can help you get at Division II school, Columbus State University in Georgia. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go do it. And I moved to Columbus, Georgia. One of the best experiences I've ever had, because I was the only assistant and I had to do everything. I had to do absolutely everything. So, and that was a great experience coaching with Jay Sparks, who was the head coach at the time. After that, that's when my college coach again called and said, I've seen you do a good job at Columbus State. I want you to come. At the time, he had told me, Hall of Fame coach Joe Champy, he's in the Hall of Fame for women's basketball. So I went to coach with him his last year of college coaching at Auburn. So I was able to go back to my alma mater for a year. I thought he'd be there for 2 years, but he was only there for 1. So I had to, decide, okay, now I have to jump somewhere else. Okay. Each jump that I made was the right decision. To go back to that, just remember this: when you're trying to decide, do I jump here in this profession, just make sure that there's a means to what you're trying to do. Okay. Sometimes you have to take this position because it's going to lead to something else. And I say that because after I realized, Nell Fortner, who you guys probably know from commentating, she took over at Auburn, and she wanted to clean house. She didn't want, anybody who was coaching there. She wanted a whole new staff. And I said, okay. So I applied for some other positions, had a chance to go to a couple other schools, full-time assistant, or I could go to DePaul making $10,000, but I'm going to be working for Doug Bruno. So I don't know how many people know Doug Bruno, but he is he is one of the best coaching minds ever. Men or women, it does not matter. So I said, you know what, for my career, I'm going to go to DePaul. And I was at DePaul for 3 years. Awesome experience. I will say, when we'll visit about Doug later, he was one of the best. He helped me learn how to teach the game of basketball. He's one of the best teachers I've ever seen, work with, ever. And then from there, I knew that I needed a different kind of experience if I wanted to be a head coach. And that's where Joanne McCauley at the time she was at Michigan State. And she had actually recruited me in college. That's where networking and make sure you're keeping in contact with people. She said, Sam, I have a position for you at Michigan State. So, I didn't sleep for a week because I knew that I loved DePaul, loved it, loved Chicago, but I also needed big Power 5, Big 10, something different. So I wanted to go get that experience. So I took the Michigan State job. However, 1 week later, she got the Duke job. So, things happen for a reason. All right. And from there, I was at Duke for 4 years. And then Coach Walls, because I had seen Coach Walls on the road, recruiting and whatnot. And, he had said that, if I ever had a position, would you be interested? And I was like, yes, it's my hometown. And so I was able to, be an assistant at Louisville for 8 years. And one of the best experiences working for Jeff Walls that, I couldn't have asked for a better scenario, being in my hometown, able to go to 2 Final Fours and just learn under Jeff Walls. So, and then obviously now I'm at Eastern Kentucky. So that's my journey.
Nice. There was so many golden nuggets that you just dropped in there. Some of them that I'm thinking about is, first of all, when you network, you have to make sure that you know what you're trying to do. Throughout that story, you always were basically taking a job because you knew that was in the plan that you had. So I think sometimes we just make moves instead of thinking about what is the ultimate goal. What do you really want to do? And through those experiences, you've been able to learn more. So could you talk a little bit more about so you made this jump from being at a high school into a university, then you went from one level, then you went from D1 to D2, then you went back up to D1, then you went to the BCS. So what were kind of some of the things that you had to switch up as a coach when you went from one level to another level? So let's say from that D2 school where you were doing everything to now you're stepping up D1. What were some of the adjustments that you had to make as a coach?
Well, I think, when I was at Columbus State D2, I was the only assistant. It was just me and my boss. And I could go solo and do whatever. And, because he gave me a lot of responsibility. But it was kind of my show as an assistant coach. When you're jumping to now where you have 3 and 4 other people to work with, now you have to you're a team member more so. And you have to make sure that, and any head coach will tell you, staff chemistry is so important. Mm-hmm. It's so important. So you got to make sure that you're doing your part, and being a good, just as we tell our players, they got to be good teammates. You have to be a good coworker. You have to have each other's back. So that was one of the big things, that now you're part of a staff, a true staff. if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's critical that you said, be the person that you want to work for, so basically making sure that you nurture your staff. Like, I think that's a huge thing that sometimes we may overlook, especially when we're as an assistant coach. Sometimes we may think like, oh, I would do things like this, or I would do things like that, but are you really providing value where you are and kind of making sure like you max out that spot? And that's one thing that I've been able to learn from you. Like, I mean, you would be in the office, literally, it would be me and you in the office early, and we would be leaving late. So could you tell us some of the things that you've been able to do throughout your career that kind of separated you as a coach?
All right. And as I say this, I'm just going to give Lindsay props here. She's on here because she embodies all of what I'm going to tell you. And one of the reasons why I think she's going to do well in this profession is, one thing you want to do is be a self-starter. Okay, that means that a coach doesn't have to tell you to do 1, 2, 3, and then they have to tell you 4, 5, 6. Okay, you know what the philosophy is. You know how they want things done. So you're a self-starter. Okay, you have to be able to also want to do the little things that they may not necessarily be glamorous. Okay, but I can promise you that the head coach is always paying attention to who's the first one in the office, who's the last one to leave. I can promise you they're always looking at that. Also, I think being able to relate to the players as an assistant coach, because so much of what we're doing now, coaches, and I'm sure you can attest, is sometimes it is messy. And what I mean by messy being an assistant coach is that you have so many different personalities. You're also dealing with the personalities of the parents of those players, and you have to help your head coach manage that. Okay, because let's say you're allowed 15 scholarships. Okay, you have 15 different personalities that a head coach has to deal with. And a head coach has so many other things that they're thinking about. If you can help put out fires as an assistant coach, you are going to show value to that head coach. Okay? That you are going, just trust me on that. Because as that head coach is thinking, I got to do this, I got to go speak here, I got this. But if they know they have their staff that, oh, they got that. They can handle that. You are going to show tremendous value on that. And then I think follow through is also important to show your value. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Follow through is huge. I could go on forever about follow through. Follow through is huge in this profession.
Could you actually give us an example? So if I'm a young coach and I'm trying to get into coaching, and I'm listening to this interview and I hear you say, you need to follow through. What exactly do you mean when you say follow through? Could you give us an example?
I think if you go to your coach and say, hey coach, I think, we need to run this play, or we need to run this offense. Have you done everything to learn how to help your coach implement that? Have you studied it? Because I tell you, and what Coach Walls was really good at Louisville, you can have all the suggestions in the world. You just better know what you're talking about. You know what I'm talking about, DP. And that's the way I am. I don't like to micromanage, but if you tell me that you want to, coach, I think we need to do this this team bonding thing, and then you don't mention it for 2 to 3 months, then you're just talking. Follow through with it, because I can tell you, if a coach thinks that that's going to help them, build a better team, they're going to be open to doing it. You just got to follow through with your suggestions.
Love that. So if we take notes, 3 things that I can remember that she just said off the top of my head is, first of all, you need to be a self-starter. So you need to make sure that you're able to get yourself going so you don't have to depend on somebody to motivate you. Second thing is, you got to make sure that you are actually bringing ideas to the table. Have some input, but at the same time, follow through on whatever you bring. have a plan. Don't just walk in the office and just say random things. You know, I know when we was at Louisville, you cannot go to Jeff and say, hey, let's do X, Y, and Z, and you don't have a plan in your head. It's just not going to happen. You have to go with a plan. And with any great head coach, they're going to listen to you. Once you repeatedly come with something that can implement and you can help to produce more value on the staff, they're going to actually start to say, hey, what do you think? And then that's when you can really get your creative juices flowing. So I'm thankful that you actually shared that with us. So now that you're a head coach, right, you done made this transition from being an assistant coach, doing your thing. You was at Louisville for 8 years, basically help building that program, taking that program to a whole nother level. What are some of the first things that you did when you got the job at Eastern Kentucky University?
Well, one of the first things I had to do, I obviously get to know everyone in the administration. And I think the most important thing, though, is who you hire. Hiring is so important because, you know, you've got, as a head coach, you got to hit the ground running. You've got a million things to do. And you have to have a staff that you can trust. And that, you know, going back to what I said, that they're already a step ahead for you and saying, hey, coach, I did that already. I mean, there's nothing better than, and Lindsay does this for me. Shout out to Lindsay. She'll just say, hey, I did this. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. I didn't even know I needed it, but you're right. Yeah, we do. We need it. So if you can already, you know, I think the hiring of staff was important. And then trying to get to know the players. You know, that's one of the things that, I mean, you were hired there. Most of the time you're hired because, you know, you have to change a culture or change something. I have to know what I'm dealing with, and getting to know the players is important. I don't know if that answers your question, but those were one of the first things that I had to try and do, you know, when I took the job at EKU.
Yeah, and I think that it's huge that you said you made the point about making sure that you hired the right people. And one thing that you brought up was trust. You got to make sure that you are able to trust whoever you're hiring at any position. Could you go a little bit deeper and kind of give us a background, like how, if I'm a head coach, what is a process that I can use to kind of filter out people that may just want just a job? Because we all know there's some people that just want to be called coach, but they don't really want to do any work. They just want the title of a coach. So how do you weed those type of people out?
Well, you know, during this whole, stay-at-home stuff, one of the things that I've been able to notice is I want my coaches coming to me and telling me, hey, coach, this is what I've done. I didn't even have to tell them to do anything. They're already on top of it. And coach, I've done X, Y, Z, you know, already. So I'm trusting that they're not just sitting at home eating ice cream and cookies. They're actually, you know, getting work done. So, because I mean, I guess we could have a 5-hour Zoom meeting every day, but I trust my staff. Hey, they're getting work done while we're going on, you know, while this is going on. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
But then also, you know, I can also tell as a head coach, I'm watching their interaction with the players. Okay, if you got players that are never in coaches' office, in certain coaches' offices, that's a red flag for me. You know, if you've got 10 players that are always in a certain coach's office, that tells me they have a good they do well with player relations. You know what I'm saying? That's a big red flag for me. Is okay, I can trust that they are for the most part building relationships with the players, because that is so huge in what we're trying to do. We're just trying to manage personalities. We're trying to get them all on the same page.
I love how you brought up the building relationships with the players, because you know sometimes we could kind of get caught up in wins and losses to the point where we kind of forget that it is an ongoing relationship. And sometimes we bring how we feel from the court performance into the locker room with the kids. So we may feel like you didn't go hard in practice, and now when I'm conversating with you off the court, I'm actually telling you stuff that you didn't do in practice, and the kid is like, oh, that's all you talk about. So I think that it's very, very vital to talk to them about other stuff, because you kind of touch on that, because you used to, I mean, you was phenomenal. While I was at Louisville, players were always in and out of your office. How did you do that?
Well, I think just the biggest thing that is having been a head coach now and understanding what I was trying to do as an assistant all those years is, if I can't give y'all any more advice, coaches, it's not about you. Okay, it is not about, you guys all come from different backgrounds and philosophies. You may, have a different philosophy, but you have to meet kids where they are and, understand that they have a way of thinking. And I know they might have just said something under their breath, that makes you upset, but not necessarily going at them is going to be the most productive thing to do. Or giving them the silent treatment of, well, I'm not talking to her today. She said something to me yesterday. It's not about you. You have to get that player, bring her back, talk to her in a sensible way, and get them back on track. It's not about us, coaches. As a head coach, it makes more sense to me as a head coach, because as assistant coach, I used to do it all the time. Like, why is she doing that? No, you gotta let it go. You'll do really well in this profession if you do not hold grudges. It is not productive to try and hold a grudge because someone might have said something or did something. You gotta, address it. If there's a penalty or consequence, just deal with it and just let it go and move on. And then while you also doing that, that kid has to know that you care about them. I can promise you in 2020, if kids don't think you care about them, I know we hear it all the time. If kids don't think you care about them, you're going to lose them. You will lose them as a coach. They won't play hard for you.
I think that, especially when you're talking about dealing with, student athletes, you got to think about it. A student athlete is pretty much with you more than they with their family. So exactly. at that point, you're basically like my mom or my dad. So I need to feel like I can go to you as if you are my mom or my dad. Not saying that you are, but we need to have that type of connection where I feel like I can talk to you. And that's one thing that I've seen you do with tons of players, is just kind of open up your office and always say, hey, do you need anything? Are you good? Do you need to talk? All of those type of things, I feel like it comes back around at the right time. And one thing that I've seen you do as an assistant coach is you never really put yourself on a player. You know how like sometimes coaches, like they keep like asking like, are you okay? Are you okay? Like you would kind of put it out there and then you would let them come at their own time. And I think that let the kids feel more comfortable being around you. So I think that's huge. And you were phenomenal. And I'm saying you were because that's when I was coaching with you. I know you probably even better now. But those relationships is huge.
That's also the skill set that I was talking to you about earlier. If you can have as a coach, as an assistant coach, having that skill set of, knowing when to interject yourself with a kid, knowing when to back off, knowing when to let them vent, knowing when to, address them. It's a skill set that I'm telling you, if you can develop it, you are going to add value, tremendous value to your head coach and to the program.
Thank you so much for that. So we got one more question, then we're gonna open it up for question and answer with the group. So everybody has been talking about this one buzzword. It's been going around all of the coaching platforms, all of the Zoom calls. Could you kind of touch on how do you go about building a culture at Eastern Kentucky University? Obviously, you got the job and they were in one situation or one place or one phase of a program. How are you kind of conducting your team culture to kind of build that team morale to get them where you want them to go?
Right. Well, first and foremost, I think kids, there's two things. I think they want to be heard, and they want you to believe in them. You know, I took over a program, and I kid y'all not, literally the worst team in the country last year. 0 Division I games. 0. Okay, so from day one, I had to make them believe, because when you lose, just as winning is a habit, losing is also a habit. Because when you start to lose and it snowballs, you're like, oh, it doesn't matter anyway. We don't, I'm not gonna get in the gym. I'll just go to the mall. One of the first things that I had to do was tell the kids, hey, I expect to win, and I am proceeding to I expect to win. I don't know what y'all are gonna do, but we're gonna win. So you have to get kids to believe in themselves as well. Okay. And then two, and this is you have to, it's important that you get good kids in there, DP. Like you have to, it goes back to recruiting and making sure that, yeah, you can want a talented player, but I'm gonna tell y'all, I have coached many a talented player, whether it be at Duke or Louisville. If you got a low character kid and with talent, it usually doesn't work. It usually does not work. I think you have to try and recruit character in your program as best you can. But you have to you have to understand what you can coach as well.
Mm.
I'll just tell you, if you don't think you can coach low character, don't do it. Because you can try and try and try, but if a kid has low character, it's probably not going to work out.
I don't think I've ever seen that work out, to be honest.
I hasn't. It's still, and it stands true to this day. I still see it, and
why do you think people still recruit kids that they kind of know, the character is not there, but they take a chance on the kid? What's the difference in taking that chance and actually saying like, hey, the character is not there, I'm not going to pursue this?
You just have to, whatever you believe in, you have to know what your core values are as a coach, and you got to be strong enough to do it. You could be tempted and like, to get that talented player, but if that one player is going to mess up those other 11 kids, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I could just, as someone who's been in the business 20 years, don't do it. Now, if they can get you 20 wins and you can keep your job, you just have to make that decision. But I can tell you, if you want to sleep at night, knowing that you have great culture, you got good kids, you don't have to worry about getting a phone call at 2 a.m. in the morning of, someone at a party or something like that. Recruit high character kids, but they obviously have to be able to play basketball as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are judged on wins and losses.
Definitely. And I think that, it's funny that you said core values, because in our group coaching program, we were just working on our coaching portfolios. And the first thing that I had everybody working on is you got to have your core values. Like you got to have at least 3 things that you stand for as a coach, no matter if you win, you lost, whatever the case is, you need those core values. So I think that that's huge that you said that. What are one of your core values, Coach?
I would say this is my number one, and Lindsay can attest to it, is reliability and being trustworthy. Can I trust you? Will you tell me the truth? Or are you going to lie to me? There's nothing worse for me, Samantha Williams, than to have someone lie to me.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be a staff member, player, just tell me the truth. I can deal with the truth. I cannot stand lies. So I think that's just something, because with that, it's going to touch a little bit of everything in your program, whether it be academics. You ask the kid, hey, did you miss class today? No, I was in class, coach. Like, if your trust erodes, it's bad. It's probably not going to work out.
Okay, so we got your number one core value, which is trustworthy,
yes.
Being reliable. So now that we shared your story, we went through some question and answer. We're gonna go ahead and open it up for anybody in the crowd that has a question or has What happened? Or has anything that they want to ask to Coach Sam, we're open. I mean, Coach Williams, my bad. I've always called you Coach.
No, you can call me Coach Sam. It's not
Coach Sam then. All right, cool. So so anybody that has a question for Coach Sam, she is wide open. She's ready to answer. We're ready to rock and roll. So make sure you got your notepads out, you got your pens ready. And who's gonna step up and be first and take yourself off of mute?
Quick before that, I know some of you already put it on the chat. If you could put your information, your name, your number, email, and where you coach at, so we can get an email ready and send it to you after, so you guys can connect. Questions?
We're open for any questions.
Hey, Coach.
Hey.
Hey, Brian Cruz. I'm a varsity girls basketball coach at Cape Coral, Florida. What I know you said that the moves that you make sure there's a means to what you're doing. But how do you know when it's the right time to make that move?
I think for me, you kind of get in all my moves. You started it's kind of intuition, like you're getting a little antsy, or you need a new challenge,
Right.
and you just kind of go, you know what? It's not that you're just looking to jump somewhere, but you're like, I'm ready for a new challenge.
Right.
Because that has been, when I at DePaul, I knew, okay, I was ready to try, and not that DePaul's not, they've been to the Sweet 16 and whatnot, but I wanted that challenge of being at a big Power 5. You start to kind of know. You'll hear a voice telling you when it's time to make that move, and it's a little scary because you might be comfortable where you are, but especially if you're young enough, you can do. I've always said this: when you're young, you can do anything for a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to help you move up in the profession. You can do it if you can do it.
So you need to make that move, whatever that move is, right there. I think Coach Sam just gave you the ammunition you needed to make that move. All right.
Yeah, because like I said, I was a graduate manager for a year, but I knew, hey, I'm in. Back in.
All right. I have a question for you, Coach Williams, Jasmine Young, Norfolk State University. What was the biggest thing, or how did you change like that culture to take a team that hadn't won any Division I games? Like, what was it for you to be able to get those players to believe that you were going to change the culture there and to help them win some games this year?
I think, again, as I was saying, I didn't accept any kind of mediocrity. I kept pushing them. You got more in you. And then, I'm not going to lie, like where I was able to draw from being with Jeff Walls and Doug Bruno and Joanne McCauley, I took a little bit from all those Final Four coaches and Hall of Fame coaches. Like I said, Walls is one of the best game strategy people I've ever seen. So I was able to take some of that also, and instill that in the culture at EKU. Okay. But I think more so, kids, you got to get kids to believe. You have to get them to believe, because if it's the other way, they'll just tank it. Your kids don't believe in themselves, and they don't believe in each other. One of the first things that I did when I took over, because I was concerned, I had 3 groups. Okay, I had a group of transfers that had already been at a school that maybe they were not successful, so they're transferring, and then I had the kids that were returning already and had been losing for the last 2 years, and then I had freshmen coming in who signed for another coach. So I had to get that group all on the same page, going the same way. And that's, again, why it's so important to have a good staff that can help me, with that vision.
Did you have a lot of players or any that were like resistant to like the newness that you brought in?
No, I don't think resistant. I think that they just, it's hard. I'd say the biggest thing, it was just hard for them because you know, they have been able to be at a certain level. Well, my level's up here. So
Mhm.
either you're going to be able to be at this level or you're not going to be able to make it.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Great question. Love that. Love that. Coach is a huge thing that we're talking about within not even just college. I mean, high school, middle school, elementary school, everything. It revolves around culture, even in your household. Like I know we build our culture at home amongst we're going to work hard together. Like we like to do everything together as much as we can. And that's the culture that we love to build in our house. I love that question. All right, we're open. Any more questions? Go ahead and hop in there. Thanks, Coach Sam. Man, went from 0 wins to how many wins did y'all have this year?
11.
Woo! Let's go.
Yeah. So, you know, again, how many head coaches do I have here?
Let's see a hand if you're a head coach. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got about 6, 7, 8.
Okay. All right. You guys have all your staff's questions and feel pretty good about that?
Head coaches, come on! If you got some questions about your staff, if you kind of shaky on that assistant coach that you've been looking at one of them assistant coaches. Don't act like that. You've been looking at one of them assistant coaches, thinking, I don't know if you coming back next season or tomorrow. You may be looking like, I don't know if you coming back tomorrow. Go ahead and hop in, ask your question.
Okay.
Sam, I'm gonna sort of ask a question, but something that I learned from you that I think everybody will benefit from. I know you said, and it's completely true, that your number one is trustworthy. And I think that's like reflects in like you having to trust everybody else. But I think you should speak some to like the biggest thing I learned from you is how honest you were with every single player coming in. And like they can trust you because you never sugarcoat or at least are always honest. So maybe speak a little bit to that. And that was a big part, I think, of changing the culture and showing that they could trust you too.
Yeah, I had a player. It was the funniest line that a player told me this year that she had to kind of help because the player was struggling with me, meaning I'd been hard on her and but I had another player go to her and say, it's okay. She gets on all of us, like all of us. Like, and that's what I think. If you can be honest with those kids and not sugarcoat anything, they are going to appreciate that. Everyone, you gotta. I think it's important. You always have to let kids know where they stand. I think that is so. They gotta know why they're not playing, why they're playing. I think communication is so huge. Good, it can be positive, it can be, sometimes the truth hurts sometimes, but you're going to be in a better place later if you have told them the truth every single time. Do not sugarcoat anything. You got to be honest with your kids of where their games are, what they need to do to get better. But the more you do it, like say if you tell them, hey, you got to work on your jump shot and you don't come back to it until February, you're doing that kid a disservice. You have to go to that kid and, okay, in 3 weeks, after you've said it initially, you working on your shot? No. Okay. I mean, I can only tell you so many times to get in the gym and work on your game. That way they know exactly why they're playing the way they are.
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that to your boss. All right, we're open. Any more questions?
I have a question. What deficits are you seeing when you're going out and recruiting high school seniors, juniors, whatever, for recruitment to come in be freshmen? What fundamental deficits are you seeing that as a high school coach I could pay more attention to?
Sure. I think if you can make decision-making and at game speed, that's one of the biggest things that I see is really at a deficit, because when I see it, it just stands out. And I don't see it as much. Can kids make a pass, the right play at game speed? At game speed. I think, one of the issues we had with our team this year is just being able to process information. in the middle of a game and be able to have it click in real time. I would say just put them in game-like situations as much as possible, because you can drill stuff over and over again, but they got to be in game situations so that they know, so that they're prepared.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Thanks for asking that, Coach Hat.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, so this is Anastasia Bittis, head coach at River College. I agree. I think, decision making is something that our team struggled a lot with this year too. And, game situation stuff. I'm just wondering what it is that you do that's maybe different to like the typical just, running special situations type of thing,
I don't think I do anything different. I just think you have to do it for more than 10 or 15 minutes a day. I mean, I think you can drill, but there's nothing like 5-on-5, because you have spacing issues. Kids have to get used to, 4 other teammates on the floor. I think that, you have to play at a high rate of speed. I think you have to have kids think quickly, move quickly. It could just be a little thing of, when they're on the baseline and you huddle up in the middle of the court. Don't let them just walk it. They have to be able to go from point A to point B and think quickly. You can train thinking quickly. You can definitely train that.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
I do have one more question.
Sure.
So when you took over this program, did you have an idea of how it is that you wanted to play already, or were you kind of like having to shape your style of play according to the players that were already there in a sense?
I definitely had to change the way I wanted to play, because and we'll be better next year because we brought in some better ball handling and shooting. But I don't think you can be successful if you're just stuck in one style. You have to assess what you have. I know you can try and like make them try and do it, but some kids just can't play a certain style. So you have to figure out what's going to be the best situation to have your kids be successful. I think if you can be adaptable and not afraid, again, one of the things that I learned from Jeff Walls is if you got to play zone sometimes, you got to play zone. If you got to play man, play man. You have to be able to adapt to any situation. You got to be able to adapt to your players. I don't think there's any set way. So every year now, obviously moving forward, we will recruit the kids that fit the way I want to play. Mm-hmm. But, sometimes, and I know in high school, you might not have that option. You got to maybe be adaptable and assess what you have that year.
Mm-hmm. Making sure you're fluid like water, so you can move with them kids and you can meet them right where they are, right? All right, we're open.
Great questions.
Yeah, these are some really good questions, and it's actually getting a lot more out of the conversation, and it's pulling out different things that we haven't even really discussed for real. So this is some great information.
Hey, I have a question. London Thomas, graduate assistant at the University of Southern Miss. My question to you, Coach Sam, would be, how do you manage parents? You have I've seen times at where I'm at that, you have players that go back to, their parents, and you may tell them a different story versus what actually is going on in practice. Like, you may not be doing what you're actually doing, but you're telling your parent a different thing. And then you have parents that's coming at you like, hey, why this and why that? And then it starts to give you a sense of, hey, maybe this player may end up transferring. So my question was, how do you, handle situations like that or prevent those situations?
Well, that's why I'll go, if I'm jumping around a little bit on this one, it's just because it's one of those questions that I don't think has a set way of doing. That's why it's important, first of all, when you recruit kids, you make sure you get to know those parents. Mm-hmm. Because I'm telling you, I have dropped kids before because of the parents. Okay. Again, that goes back to your core values and what you're willing to do. Okay. I think again, just as I was saying about communication with players, if you're willing to do it, I think communication with parents and just letting them know from the jump what you will do and what you will stand for and what you're not going to do. You know, uh, some coaches, and I'm one of those, I will let parents come to practice. You can come see. I want you to know why Susie's not playing. I want you to come see it. That might not be, what some of y'all want to do, but I think if parents can see what their kid is doing and not doing, I think that helps. I don't know if that answers your question. I think constant communication with parents and what you're going to tolerate is important.
Hey, Coach, Diane from Miami. What kind of things do you do for team building for your team to build your culture? What are some ideas that you have for that?
Lindsay, I'm going to let you take this over. Lindsay's my team bonding guru right here.
And I want everybody to be able to see how that works. As the head coach, she already delegated because she knows that that's Lindsay's strength. So she lets her do her thing in her strength. Sometimes we got to make sure that we're able to delegate to the right people.
Because I trust Lindsay. I trust her.
Well, I'll go on a couple things we've done, and then I'll go on a couple things we've done actually recently via Zoom as well, because obviously, like, everybody's having to figure out in the last 2 months how we're dealing with this super unique time. But really, at the beginning of the season, it was figuring out how to get all the girls to know each other. So Coach Sam already alluded to having the 3 different groups being returners, transfers, and freshmen. And so much of our team bonding at the beginning was getting them to speak up. So part of what I knew was important to Sam is that each person on our team, each player, has a voice and speaks up, or else they're not going to survive on the team. So a big part of the culture building and team bonding was empowering those players to speak up. And like one example is a super simple exercise we did where we all sat in a circle in a locker room and we went around and we said, we did a 3 H's. What's a hero, a highlight, and a hardship? So it was, turn to the person next to you and talk about a hero in your life. And then we came back together and everybody spoke for themselves and then shared for their partner too. Went back and said, what's a highlight that has happened in your basketball career? And then, pair up and share and then share with the group. All right. Now what's a hardship you've had to face, right? It's simple and it's not an exercise that'll blow your mind talking about it right now, but it gave them a chance to be vulnerable in front of each other.
It was deep.
It was huge. It was so deep.
We had tears.
Mm-hmm.
We had kids that couldn't speak. They had to get their teammate to speak on the hardship. Like it was pretty deep right off the jump of being able to share, because some of our kids had really gone through some stuff that had I not known, it's always good to know where a kid's coming from, because you'll deal with them a little bit different and understand what they're fragile about. It was very eye-opening.
For sure.
Some of these kids have really had a hard life. But see, if you don't know that, then you're just, you might be yelling at them, but you don't know where they come from. So you got to understand that pain that maybe they've gone through in their lives.
I think something important too was that our coaches were involved in that.
Yeah.
Our staff, Sam was involved, and the vulnerability part. Yeah, it's all well and good if we can get our girls to be vulnerable in front of each other, but them seeing some of the staff members shared some really intense things as well. And that all goes back to the number one, trustworthy. Like now the players are starting to trust us. We're starting to trust the players, at least get a better idea of where they come from. Exactly what Coach Sam was just saying. So that was simple. And then we do after that, we even did a movie night because we needed something a little bit lighter, right? So as heavy as that day was, now we know we need to do something a little bit lighter, right? And then one other thing too, we've done some different stuff via Zoom, which is kind of the similar structure, giving each of them a chance to talk on kind of structured questions, but questions that also get at the stuff we need them to be doing. Questions like, what have you done over this this period to get better at something. What's been the hardest thing holding you back from doing that? And like, we got on the phone right after, Sam and I did, and it was kind of shocking at some of the stuff that the kids were, you know, having a hard time with, but it gives us a better idea of how we go about this like scenario, but then also gets us to know them more. And anytime they can speak on their own behalf, they feel like you care more about them too, because you're asking them and you're getting them to do that. I know I probably went beyond my time that you passed off to me. Sam,
You don't
but
have
if
no
I
time.
did drop my email in that.
No,
and we
here's another thing I want to speak on, because I had to make a hard decision this season of dismissing the team's previous season leading scorer. Okay, I had to
Speak on that.
no. I mean, you know, that was a tough. I mean, I wrestled with it. Lindsay can tell you. But one of the reasons why I had decided to do it is because that kid did not have a relationship with anybody on her team. Meaning, they didn't care for her. She didn't take the time to speak to them. She didn't hang out with them. I mean, obviously, I could have probably had 5 more wins on our record had we had her. But I knew that if I'm trying to get this program to go in the right direction, again, it goes back to like, what are you willing to stand for with your core values? I knew in order to not lose the rest of the kids, I had to make the tough call. So I would say, Coach Diane, make sure your players understand they don't have to hang out with each other, but go talk to them. Like, go say, hey, you know, hey, you want to go grab a bite to eat? It could just be those two. All those kids have to have a relationship, and it could all be different with each other. They have to have a relationship with each other.
Love that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Love that. Great question. Great question. We're open. Any more questions?
Yes,
I think I have one. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you can go.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
I'm Emily Flanagan from Foley High School. And my question is to you is about the low character, or
Yeah.
you were talking about having, you know, low character at the high school level. I mean, because you're not recruiting.
Right.
How long do you give a player a chance? You know, I mean, even if, you know, trying to be, because my thing is, you know, I do have a JV as well. So, you know, I think sometimes I want to, you know, give them that opportunity to try to grow and, you know, get the character right. But like, how do you, you know, give that chance, but at the same time, if it's just not working, to let a child go?
Did your administration back you up? Like, do you communicate with, you know,
Yes.
so they understand, like, if you had to make that tough call that might not win as many games? Like, I think that's one of the first things. Just, I think, constantly communicate with your administration, have them understand, okay, I can win more basketball games for you, but if I keep this player, but it's going to destroy the rest of the team.
Right.
So I think that helped me because I was in constant communication with my administrators, and they just said, Coach, do what you got to do.
Got it.
You know, they said, do what you got to do. And then, but also, that's a tough one because there's no certain, like, okay, it's been 2 weeks and I got to cut her now. You gotta get to that point where you understand you don't want to lose the rest of your team.
Right.
And I think kind of you'll have a voice that says, I can't do it anymore. Because that's what happened for me. It just got to the point where I can't do it anymore. You know?
Okay. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. That's what I always kept saying. It was just more of, you know, when it comes down to, like you said, your character, your core values, and, you know, but when you do have a child that's constantly giving you the pain. But I do have a great administration that they will definitely back me if anything ever like that happened. But thank you.
That's huge. If you got people that will support you in that decision.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Coach. My name is Coach Antoine. I'm the assistant coach for Carver College in Atlanta, Georgia.
Hey.
And my question to you is just during your journey, Did you ever experience when going to a new school or program where you don't have the full support of the administration, but you're trying to change the culture and help, bring that program to a better situation?
I'm trying to. Fortunately, I can't say that I have. I think that I'm trying to go in my head. I don't think I've had that unfortunate situation. All the places that I've been have been supportive of women's basketball. So I hate that I can't answer that, but I've just been very fortunate to have been at places that understand what we're trying to do. Sorry about that.
All good.
It's all good. I mean that I mean it's bad because you can't really answer the question, but it's good for your career. That means you ain't have to deal with that. But
Just thinking, wow, I've been very lucky. I've been very blessed.
Definitely. Any more questions? Any more questions? I know we've been talking about a lot of communication.
Sure.
So one of the communication tools that we use is called HOT. So you want to make sure everything is hot, meaning that you want to make sure you're honest, you want to make sure you're open, and you want to make sure you're transparent. So when you're dealing with that student athlete, make sure that you're super honest and you're open and transparent, because you will actually get a reflection of what you are from that student athlete. So I know I just wanted to share that with everybody, just in case you needed an extra quick hitter for your communication.
And just remember to go along with that, these kids talk to each other. Like you can't tell one kid something and then think they're not going to go back and tell their teammate what you said. And like, well, that's not what they told me. And then you got a mess. If you're sending different messages to your kids and you're not consistent, and my whole big thing, what I've tried to do in my career, if I'm going to say something about somebody, I'm going to be able to say that thing to their face as well. Now that sounds like, well, so no. I'm just saying, if you don't want to get caught up in gossiping and talking about people, just make sure whatever you got to say about someone, whether it's a critique, that you're able to say that to their face as well. And be, like you said, be honest about it. You will sleep better at night if you can just say what you have to say and then move on.
Love that. Love that. We're open. Any more questions?
I have one. It's Kevin Wygant here. I just had a quick question. I was just reading something on this topic of communication, Coach. Do you have any policies for your players about like social media use?
Oh yeah. And I try to monitor that pretty religiously, because I'm really conscious of image with that. In particular because of the places that I've been. I mean, Louisville, Duke, whatever. So those kids they have to understand they when they sign on to your program, or if they want to be a part and wear that jersey, there comes a bigger responsibility. And so I make them all follow me, and I follow all of them. And if they don't want to do it, they're gone. That sounds simple, but I follow everybody. I don't let them obviously tweet any profanity. I don't let them retweet any profanity. And I'm trying to think what else. I just try to monitor and make sure that they're not complaining about everything. Because kids can get on there and they can say, "I can't believe Coach yelled at me today." Yeah, and I don't want stuff like that on social media either, because you may not know who's following you, but those, you got recruits and parents. Trust me, they all follow. They all follow you.
Thank you.
No problem. I just would make sure that, I know you don't want to like intrude on them, but you got to watch what your kids are putting on there. That's one thing I don't care, because I try not to like micromanage and be in all their business, but social media is something that I draw the line on. I'm going to follow everybody, and I don't care if they like it or not.
One of those core values right there.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Any more questions?
Hi, Coach Paige Corkins, over at Concordia College, New York. I'm an assistant. I have a question. In terms of going back through your experience and through your years, what would you say would be the key thing you would tell yourself if you can have a conversation with yourself going through your journey?
Wow, that's a good question.
Coach Paige, she'll do that to you. She is the one, Coach. She's the one that's gonna ask you that question every time. Every time.
I think I would just go back and just try to learn as much as you can. I think if you can diversify your skill set as soon as you can, it's going to make you more valuable. I tried to do that for the most part, but looking back now, I think there's things I could have done. Just have knowledge about a wide range of things, because if you're applying for that position, or and they ask you, hey, are you able to do this? Well, I don't have experience doing that. I would try to learn as much, any kind of skill set you think, because people think we just coach basketball. They think that, well, what are you doing now at the basketball season? No, there's so many things that we do as coaches. We wear so many different hats. I would try to know a little bit about all of it. You're not going to be great at everything, but I think the more you can learn about, I think it'll help you.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Any more questions? Because because Coach she could go on all day. She can answer these questions all day. Coach, who is your coaching mentor? Who do you call when you need a little advice or you want to run a different set? Who you calling?
Well, right now it's Jeff Walls for sure. Like, I tell you, one thing what y'all see on the court is one thing, and I told y'all he does it great. He's one of the best strategists that I've seen and worked with. But his management of his players behind the scenes, you have no idea what he has dealt with, parents, players. It's mess. That's what LT. You laughing there? She was at Louisville. Hey LT. The way he deals with his players, I have learned invaluable lessons with, because to get a finished product at its best, you're gonna have to deal with the messy stuff, and it's not gonna be, well, I believe this way, so I'm gonna run. No, it's hard. It is hard and it's messy, but you have to just be willing to roll up your sleeves. And again, I'll tell you, it's not about you. It's not about you as a coach. You got to try and figure out what's the best way to approach that kid, because I don't think you could have a cookie cutter way of dealing with your whole team. You got to know each and every player, what's going to motivate them, the different ways to motivate them, because they're not all the same. You guys know, some kids you can yell at, some you can't. You have to, the sooner you can know that kind of stuff, the better.
Nice. Any questions? Any more questions? All right. Okay. So since there's no more questions, first of all, we want to thank you for being a part of the Coaching Corner, Coach Sam.
Yes, thank you, Coach.
It's really, really been a pleasure to have you on, especially knowing your history. We got 20 years of coaching on the line, and just you sharing your knowledge with everybody. And we also want to thank everybody that's on the call right now, because obviously you could be doing something else, but you decided to be on the call with us. For everybody that's on the call, if you're interested in our coaching program, we work with tons of coaches. We help them to basically level up as coaches, put more tools in their toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
You can never have too many tools. You need as much as you can. You got to come equipped for this game. So that's what we do. Coach Sam, much love to you. I miss working with you, but I love what you're doing. And I'm going to come out there and I'm going to help the squad too. So we'll be doing some stuff together.
Well, we need all the help we can get. But then also, you guys feel free to email me or call me anytime, going forward. And you guys don't know, I really appreciate you taking the time. Like DP said, you guys could be doing other things. So I appreciate you taking the time out to listen to me today.
And we'll put our contact information in the email. So when you guys get your email, you'll be able to see it. You can make sure you go follow her. Make sure you link up with her after this. And use this as an opportunity to network. I know everybody's talking about how we gonna be able to network during this time, and we're opening up the floodgates. Like we are opening it up so you can network with one another and help each other to get to the next level. So with that being said, thank you to everybody that's on the call. Enjoy the rest of your night. Coach Sam, much appreciated.
Much love.
Bye-bye.
Paige, you got us? Got it. Jenny! Let's go.